So definitely for me the biggest challenge of the whole thing about being a mum was feeding. I've got 2 kids and I didn't manage to breastfeed my first baby hardly at all, not for anywhere near as long as I wanted, due to tongue tie, due to mastitis and due to me having a really big oversupply. But I did manage to breastfeed my second baby for 10.5 months, so I sort of managed to really think about it and turn it round for the second baby. So what happened with Freddie was, in the delivery room I had him and they said, they checked him all over and they're like, he's absolutely fine, but he's got this thing called tongue tie, which I'd never heard of. Apparently it's quite a common thing and can be a root of some breastfeeding problems. And it's just the thing where their tongue is still stuck to the bottom of their mouth and they can't quite lift it properly. And then that really affects feeding because they can't latch on and do the motions that they need to do. So they said, oh, you know, you need to feed him with a syringe, which, you know, I didn't have a clue how to do that. So we sort of struggled by for the first few days while we waited to get an appointment to get the tongue tie cut. They just do a really simple little procedure, it doesn't hurt the baby at all. So day 5 we went in, had that done, and then day 7 I woke up just in absolute agony. I just had a fever, this little tiny 1-week-old baby, and my teeth were chattering and I was just totally out of it, like the worst flu you've ever had in your life, and I didn't know what was going on. My right breast just had big red blotches all over it. So as soon as my husband got up in the morning, we just went straight to the hospital and they said I had mastitis. I don't know if anyone's had it, but it's just the most painful thing. You just feel not only in extreme agony, but you have these flu-like symptoms. So I just was in bed. So got to the hospital and then they advise you to feed through it, which everything in your whole brain and body is telling you don't do it because it's such agony. But I really wanted to breastfeed. It was one of the things I was kind of most looking forward to about being a mum, bizarrely. It just felt like such a lovely thing to do and experience, and I'd been so determined that I would be able to do it, that I went home with Freddie with a course of antibiotics and just carried on feeding him. But unfortunately for me, it just kept recurring. It would kind of get better over the day's course of antibiotics, and then the night that the antibiotics finished, it would come straight back again, or just really quickly. Once I remember taking Freddie for a walk, and by the time I got back to the house, I was throbbing, I was in pain. So I went on like that for a couple more weeks and ended up going to the breastfeeding clinic that they have as soon as I was well enough, because I'd just been in bed and my family and my husband were having to really help out. And I went to the clinic and they said, you've got to go straight to your GP, give us the baby. You've got mastitis on both breasts and also thrush on both breasts, which I didn't know you could get. And I think it was just all caused by the poor technique developed with the tongue tie and then not sorting that out, because I just got used to the fact that breastfeeding just really hurt, and it's your first baby, and I just thought that that was what it felt like and that I was just learning. So I went to the GP and sadly he then said this had been going on for like 4 weeks, and he said you have to come on really strong antibiotics. They did a swab and sent a sample away to see what was causing it, but he said you're going to have to stop breastfeeding. It just still makes me really sad. It's just like going from that morning of breastfeeding and then that afternoon you're not. You have to just get used to bottles, sorry. I don't know why, I just have a really strong reaction whenever I talk about it. I experienced it like such a pain, because everything in my body was telling me to just feed my baby, and I felt like something had been taken away from me, and it felt cruel and it felt, why me? And I felt, you know, the thing I was worried about, which is crazy, was just the bond with my baby. I felt like if I wasn't the only one feeding this little couple of weeks old baby, that he wouldn't know that I was his mum, which is bonkers thinking about it now, because he's 5 and you couldn't have a happier, more bonded baby. You know, as soon as I went onto bottles, I was healthy. And I realised that, you know, all a baby needs is a healthy and happy mum, and that's what I was giving him by choosing to go into bottles. It just felt for me, and it still feels, as you can tell, kind of like just a loss, just something that I really felt passionate about doing, and it felt, as I said, just kind of a shock really as well. Just from one minute to the next, to have to go to Boots and buy all my bottles and get my head around it when I was feeling so unwell was kind of difficult to deal with. You know, I still remember that day so clearly, and I couldn't even watch my husband feed the baby a bottle. I just had to hide in the kitchen because I felt so emotional about it. And I've spoken to a few other mums who've been through similar and have felt the same way. We just give ourselves a hard time. So when it came to baby number 2, everyone was quite anxious about how I was going to react if I wasn't able to breastfeed again, because everyone knew how important it was for me and how much I'd suffered the first time round with just the disappointment. So what I did is I hired a breastfeeding counsellor before he was even born. I got a recommendation and I emailed her, we had some email exchanges. She knew the day that Finn was due to be born, and she came literally the day after I got home from hospital and sat with me and spent a good 2 hours teaching me techniques for my body and for my issues, and just really sat and talked it through. And it just felt like having that one person whose sole job was the emotional and practical support of breastfeeding, amongst all the other things that go with having a new baby, just really helped me get by. And I could text her at any time. It wasn't expensive, certainly not, you know, compared to the price of bottles. And what it did is it was just very much that support. And you know, it's like hiring a personal trainer if you want to exercise. You know, when you're trying to learn something, which you are with breastfeeding, just having somebody there who's on your side. And she was there all the time for text and would come to the house. So I did that, and it wasn't without its issues. I still had the same things. I still had an oversupply, which meant I had loads and loads of milk, which people think is a good problem to have, but it's really difficult. The baby can't always keep up with the flow, and it makes it very easy to get engorged and lead to mastitis. But this time around I just really dedicated myself to it so much, and I do believe that breastfeeding is 95% determination in those early days and 5% kind of technique. You just have to, in my case, if you're struggling, decide, is it best for baby, is it best for me? And if those two things are yes, then go for it. And you know, then I did. I sort of managed to, it took me ages, maybe 3 months, but I had those experiences that I kind of couldn't ever imagine myself having, like just popping the baby on while I was chatting and him having a really satisfying feed, and then the supply and demand started coming, you know, so I could feed him when he needed it, and it was lovely. It was everything that I wanted it to be, and we managed to do it for, as I say, 10.5 months after a good sort of 3 months of trying to get it established, and with support from a breastfeeding counsellor and my family. Yeah, and then Finn just decided one summer, it was the summer, and he just got sort of really alert at around 10 months and decided he didn't really want to concentrate on breastfeeding anymore. He wanted to be out and about, and it felt like, you know, a natural end. I would have definitely kept going for ages, because I'd never felt so proud of myself. I felt like it was just the biggest thing I've achieved in my whole life. So anyway, I'll stop blubbing about breastfeeding, but if anyone's going through mastitis or going through an oversupply or going through engorgement, know that the bottle isn't your enemy. You know, all the baby needs is its happy and healthy mum, and that's what you're giving your baby by making the best choice about feeding that works for you and your family. And you know, just know that other people have been through it and have managed to breastfeed successfully other children or at later stages. And I'll put some links if anyone wants to message me for any more information about what I went through with tongue tie, mastitis or breastfeeding counselling. Just put a message below and I'll get in touch. Thanks so much for watching. Sorry it was so emotional. Bye.